And we will go ahead and start our April 1st, 9 o'clock a.m. meeting. And we'll go with the approve the agenda action. Lene?
Mr. Chair, there's no changes to the agenda. We are starting with Resolution 25-28 today.
All right, thank you.
Chair, motion to approve the agenda.
Thank you, Charlie.
I'll second.
Jeff? Thank you, second. All right, go ahead, Lene.
Rapp,
Yes.
Way,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Kalina.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, approve the draft minutes of the March 18th, 2025 regular meeting.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you,
for
Shane.
March 18th.
I'll second.
And thank you, Tim. Lene, please.
Way, Meyer,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Kalina,
Yes.
Rapp.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, thank you. So we will start out with a public hearing today on cannabis retail sales, event, and public use ordinances. Dave, I guess you started off, if you will.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I'd like to step us through this draft ordinance. And if the ordinance is approved by you today, it would be ordinance number 040125. As we've talked at previous meetings, I think we're aware that the state of Minnesota has passed statutes that legalize adult recreational use cannabis. And in those statutes, it provides an opportunity for local units of government, including counties, to determine the time, place, and manner in which cannabis is used within our jurisdiction. And it also provides us an opportunity to register retail sales businesses within our county and for local units of government that choose to delegate that authority to us. So for the benefit of the public, I'll just step through this ordinance mentioning some points about it. It's been available for the public to view on our website. It's been in this packet. We've had several meetings about it. So this particular ordinance starts with general provisions that include legal authority, the findings and the purpose. And I think primarily the purpose here is that our goal at the county is to protect and promote the health, safety, and welfare of the citizens and visitors to our county. It lays out our jurisdiction and the application of this ordinance, that it applies throughout the county and not in municipalities unless they delegate that authority to us, but applies within all townships in the county. I'd also point out too that this ordinance, if adopted, would supersede ordinance number 110723, which is our public use ordinance, which was adopted in 2023. There's a section in here that revises that public use. There's definitions in here. Many of these definitions, as stated at the beginning, are definitions as assigned per Minnesota Statute 342.01. There are a couple of terms defined in here that you do not find in state statute. A couple of those include non-ingestible hemp-derived product, and we define an educational institution, which is a broader term for a school, specifying what that might be. So the ordinance goes on. There's a section 3, inspection, responsibility, permits, and licenses. And it basically says that all cannabis retail businesses and events are required to follow the state law, to be licensed by the state, and to follow the terms of this ordinance or other ordinances within the county. That permits and licenses are required, and parties have to acquire those permits and licenses before engaging in activity that's regulated by this ordinance. And that it lays out that the state provides us an opportunity to review license applications as they come in, to ensure that they comply with our zoning requirements as well as this ordinance. Section 4, the registration of cannabis businesses. These would be specifically cannabis retail businesses. The important part of this section is that the state provides us the ability to limit the number of registrations for retail sales businesses in our community. And as stated in this ordinance, the county board may limit that number of registrations, and that if they do so, the county board should do it annually at their organizational meeting by resolution. So board, what that means basically is each year, if you choose to, you may change the number of registrations that you wish to give out. However, you can never give out fewer than one per every 12,500 residents of the county. It also states that retail registrations are required for lower potency hemp edibles and medical cannabis combination businesses, but the county does not intend to limit the number of registrations. It goes on to describe what's required to submit to the county for an annual registration, and I won't go into that detail, but there's a good bit of information that we require similar to what the state requires in their licensing process. I would point out that we're permitted to charge a fee, and that fee is limited by state statute. Registrations are not transferable, and they must be renewed annually. However, I would point out that this annual registration is not on a calendar year. Unfortunately, it's from the point at which the business is first registered, the time that it's first registered. The county also retains the right to suspend or revoke a registration, and the requirements for that are listed in subpart C. In section 5, whatever businesses that the county registers, we are required to complete compliance checks on those businesses. And those compliance checks means that at least once annually, the county must have individuals, law enforcement, or public health officials visit these businesses and check for age compliance and that they're complying with the other provisions of this ordinance. Then there are, in section 6, regulations for cannabis retail businesses that they all must meet in order to continue to operate in the county. It does indicate that we may require a training program for those businesses to ensure that they're aware of how to check for proper age. And then there are some additional local regulations that those businesses must comply with, and those are listed. Some that I should point out in here, the county does have the ability to require setbacks of those businesses from various uses, and those include an educational institution, licensed daycares, residential treatment facilities, attractions within parks or public properties that is used by minors, other cannabis retail businesses, and places of religious worship. I would also point out that there are a few places in this ordinance where we are requiring things that are slightly more restrictive than the state. So one of those would be that we're requiring that 500-foot setback from places of religious worship. Then we go on in section 7 to address temporary cannabis events, and the county is essentially treating these as any sort of special event that would occur in the county. I would point out that in our efforts to draft this ordinance, the work group came to the conclusion that in addition to this cannabis business ordinance, that the county really needed to have a special event ordinance. And so you'll see that ordinance is specifically mentioned in here. It does not exist yet. If this ordinance passes, I would be immediately asking the county the board to instruct me, and I'd be working with our emergency manager and law enforcement to bring forth to you a special event ordinance. But again, the purpose of this is that there are events that occur in the county, and we feel that we need to have some controls over them for public health and safety concerns. Any event where cannabis might be permitted by a state license would have to comply with this section of our cannabis ordinance. Section 8 is cannabis use in public places, and this essentially replaces our public use ordinance, where we state that adult cannabis use, so cannabis flowers, adult use cannabis products, are prohibited in all public places and places of public accommodation. So basically what we're saying in section 8A is there is no place other than your private residence or a private location where you can consume adult use cannabis. In Part B, however, the county does not restrict the consumption of hemp-derived consumer products and lower potency hemp edibles, other than they must be consumed in a place licensed by the state and also possess a license for on-site liquor sales and consumption. We prohibit smoking or vaporize use of cannabis and cannabis products anywhere where the vapor might be inhaled by a minor or tobacco use is prohibited. And the use of topical products is not prohibited. So this section, and I can answer questions as they come up, would prohibit the use of adult use cannabis in our public parks and streets and so on. And if I may, and then section 9 is the enforcement section that I've worked with the county attorney on. It basically provides for both criminal and civil processes for enforcement of our ordinance. I won't get into the details of that. And provides for the criminal penalty pertaining to cannabis use. So basically, if you violate the use section of that ordinance. And so if this ordinance is adopted today, it would be effective immediately after we meet our statutory requirements for publication. So I'll take questions, and then Mr. Chair, if you want to open a hearing.
Mr. Chair, I got a question for Dave. Under section 8A, it says there is an exception to an employee who is in the registry program. They can have it in public and smoke in public? What's the registry program? Is that medical
so
marijuana,
it is,
or what does that mean?
It is the registry program to consume medical cannabis. So right now, there is a program existing in the state that those who, for medical reasons, cannabis is what they need to treat whatever it is that they're dealing with, they are exempt from those regulations. So it doesn't exempt them from the prohibition on smoking, so they would have to consume some other way.
Okay, gotcha. And are they a card-carrying person then? So if somebody asks them, or?
These are fabulous questions that I
Okay.
don't know the specific answers
Sorry I
to,
brought it
but
up.
I'm assuming if you're in a registry program, there's a
You would have
way
one.
to look that up. I would believe that that registration is something that law enforcement can access fairly readily.
Okay, thank you.
Great question, though.
Mr. Smith, I have an answer to that question. I had experience working at a previous employment where employee had to have a medical marijuana or medical cannabis. He had to have a proof from the doctor
Okay.
with the card, and then present it to the HR department, and so
They do have it.
if you have it.
Well, Dave, I got a question. How does this going to apply to homeschooled kids as far as those setbacks?
That's an excellent question. The school setback is specific to certain educational institutions as defined by the state. So homeschooling doesn't fit that definition, but charter schools would fit that definition. They have to have a certain organization that they meet. It's in here as any sort of public, elementary, middle, secondary, vocational center schools as defined under Minnesota State Statute 120A05, or non-public that meet reporting requirements under 128.24. Homeschool wouldn't need to meet those reporting requirements unless they do, maybe.
They do in order to be reimbursed.
Okay, so if they meet that requirement, then they
There are
would,
some that would and some that, yeah.
some that don't.
Some that don't ask for the match.
So if they meet the requirement, we would enforce that setback, but we'd have to be aware that they're there.
Yeah, and so if this goes into the sale of real estate, then if there has been an established seller or retail store, and somebody moves into that neighborhood, they need to be, they have to accept that.
That is correct. So as you read in there in the setbacks, if the cannabis business is there before one of the other uses would be permitted in that area, they can't supersede, that the cannabis business is allowed there.
All right, thank you. Anybody else?
Yes, I do have a question, Mr. Rush. The setback requirements, is that pretty much set in stone what we have here?
So those setback requirements that are in our ordinance are the maximum that the state statute allows us to apply. We've also, as I said, included a setback to religious places of religious worship that the state statute doesn't even mention. So I would say, I won't say we're stepping out on a limb. We're taking a stand that we think that that's important, and we believe that we can justify that.
Well, the issue that I have when I look at this, you got 1,000 feet from an educational institution, but then 500 feet from a daycare, and then 500 feet from a religious place of worship. Well, what are those places involved, like the daycare and a religious place of worship? It involves children, and then the church is involved with children as well. And so that was my concern about the setbacks. If you can treat it the same as the educational institution, anything that involves children should be a little bit more stricter.
Commissioner, I certainly understand where you're coming from. If there was an opportunity for us to consider a place of religious worship as a school and it met that educational institution definition, you bet we would apply that 1,000-foot setback.
Well, then,
But otherwise, we're limited by what the state has allowed us to do.
Right.
The other thing that I would say too is, in a little bit here, you're gonna look at the zoning ordinance. Those setbacks are the same, but we also have the ability to decide what zoning districts we allow certain uses in. And so you'll see that we have some additional controls that are available to us through our zoning ordinance.
thank you.
Anybody else? Otherwise, I'm going to go to the public out here. Is there any public comment on this subject? Any public comment? Well, if I don't see any here, then we're going to come out of closed session. And we're going to open, or just go back into our regular meeting. And, yeah. All right. Okay. Well, Dave, you're up next.
I am. Well, thank you. So, Mr. Chair, the items that I have for you today, obviously, we started with number 1 here, which is number 2 on my agenda. So if the board has questions, I'd be happy to answer them, but after the public hearing and your questions, I think we would be seeking the board approving the cannabis retail sales, events, and public use ordinance, which would become ordinance 040125.
What's the board think?
I'll make a motion to approve the cannabis retail sales, event, and public use ordinance.
Thank you, Tim.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Shane. Are there any other comments on that? I do have one. So I guess my concern on the way the cannabis was implemented, to me, is dangerous. Federal law still says you cannot own firearms if cannabis is in your body or system. And number one, this should not apply to medical cannabis. And if there are any lawsuits against Douglas County from writing the rules on recreational cannabis, the county shall not bear the burden of any responsibility of writing rules on a product that has way too many loose ends, and I don't have the appetite to approve without this attachment to the motion. So you guys made the motion. If that can be added, I will vote for it, otherwise I won't. Up to you guys.
So let me ask something. Dave, if we put that in the ordinance, how much teeth does it have?
Well, Mr. Chair, I guess my question to the chair would be, is he making a statement in a motion, or is he seeking to add something to the ordinance that is not in there today? And before you answer that question, so the ordinance was reviewed by our county attorney, but also by an attorney that we consult with out of the Twin Cities. The firm regularly represents our county and other counties when we get sued related to our ordinances. So that attorney reviewed this ordinance, and I did ask at one point in our process, what is the liability of the county? And her statement was, it's really the same liability we have with anything else we do. When we follow state statute and we write rules, we're immune from the liability associated with somebody making a mistake or an error or something else. But if we've written those rules following state statute and we've got good principles and findings behind them, we're fairly immune from most of that liability that I think Commissioner Rapp is concerned about. But I'll turn it back to him.
Well, my comment would be, is that federal law still has not legalized this product. So we are making a law that still does not agree with federal law. And that's why this is a problem for me, is that we are doing things, making, you might say, regulations on something that is still federally illegal. And I do not understand how we can do that.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I don't disagree with you at all when it comes to that. But the problem we have in the state of Minnesota and Douglas County is they've approved it. If we do not do this in Douglas County, we lose our privileges of being able to control where it goes. Then in St. Paul, they're going to tell us, because they've already done that to us, we're the people that are going to be able to sell, and we will have no control in Douglas County. And that's the purpose of the ordinance. You're right, I don't disagree with that. But if we don't do this, I'm really sick and tired of having St. Paul tell us what we have to do every time in our backyards.
That's.
And if we don't do this, they've already told us they're gonna, because they're already doing the licensing for all cannabis. We are just registering them in our county. And we get a little bit of the sales tax for doing that. But the group in St. Paul, for some reason, think this is the way to operate. I am in favor of the ordinance for that reason and that reason only. And that this way we do get an opportunity to control it with planning and zoning, where the retail stores go and things like that. I don't agree with the whole concept. I'm like you are that way, Jerry, but I think we need to do this just for that reason. And I know where you're at. We've known each other for a long time.
Mr. Chair, I sat in on the planning and zoning stuff, and we worked a lot on this. And if we aren't able to set our own, if the state comes in here and sets it, the setbacks are gonna be a lot closer than what we put the maximum on that we could
Yeah.
in order to keep it as controlled as possible. And basically, Dave can tell you this too, if the city ends up, we're allowed 4 in the county. If the city ends up with 4, we don't have any out in the county. We don't have to grant any registration. So it just depends what happens in the city. But I'm gonna leave my motion as stands.
All right.
Mr. Chair, again, I don't think anybody in this group would deny the medical use of cannabis anywhere. I don't think that is not even the question. It's, and the group that got this passed throughout the state of Minnesota used that as an excuse to get their retail sales out. And I firmly believe that. But if we don't take the little bit of the forward action that we're talking about here, we're not going to be able to control what happens in our backyard. So I do agree with the motion, but so we have some control.
All right,
Call for the question.
we
Then.
will call the question.
Rapp,
No.
Way,
No.
Meyer,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Kalina.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All righty. We will move on there, Dave.
Yes. Okay. Oh, thank you. So the next item I have for you is, well, before I move on from that ordinance, by consensus perhaps, does the board understand my statement earlier about the special event ordinance? And is that the desire of the board to have me move forward in cooperation with law enforcement and emergency management to bring forth to you a special event ordinance?
Mr. Chair, if we need a motion, I'd so move.
Thank you, Charlie.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tim. Are there any other questions? Lenny, please.
Rapp,
No.
Way,
No.
Meyer,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Kalina.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, very good. And at your next meeting, I will bring to you a resolution so that you can set the number of cannabis retail sales. So my understanding from the work group is that it's the desire of this board to limit it to 1 per 12,500. And as Mr. Kalina pointed out, that would be 4 in the county. That would count for anywhere in the county, including municipalities where we either do or don't have registration jurisdiction. So, okay, thank you. The next item I have for you is at the Planning Commission meeting last Tuesday, and as Mr. Kalina pointed out, we've been working on amendments to the zoning ordinance related to cannabis businesses. And so we held a public hearing at the Planning Commission meeting. No one was in attendance. I shouldn't say that. There was one gentleman in attendance, and there were no comments on our ordinance. So I'll quickly step through this for you. There are, every zoning district in the county has permitted uses and conditionally permitted uses. And so what the Planning Commission has done is to look at the various cannabis uses as defined by the state and to make a recommendation to you as to where they should fall in those zoning districts in terms of uses both permitted and conditional. Really quickly, Cannabis uses are not widely permitted in our county, certainly not in our residential and rural residential zoning districts, our residential shoreline districts. And you can even see on page 4 of this proposed ordinance, there is a small chart here, and it shows that the vast majority of cannabis businesses are not permitted in our residential, rural residential, and residential shoreline zoning districts. And so what that leaves is that the majority of these businesses are a conditionally permitted use in our commercial industrial zoning district, of which I believe at a previous meeting here, I showed you are in discrete areas in the county, rather isolated where there's, interstates and adjacent municipalities, so on and so forth. There are a few of these uses that are conditionally permitted in the ag zoning district. They're listed on, under that district. So cultivation, manufacturing, mezzo business without retail, micro business, wholesale transport, medical combination business, delivery service. Those are all conditionally permitted uses in the ag district. And then moving on to section 5, we have performance standards which lay out if you have a cannabis business, there are rules that you have to follow. We do have specific requirements as to if you have a retail business, what kind of outdoor signage or promotion can you have, what the parking and the lighting, the setbacks, as we mentioned in the previous ordinance, those setbacks are the same because they are the maximum that we can implement. I would point out as well, we're also proposing that 500 feet from place of religious worship, and in our zoning ordinance, cannabis cultivation and processing have to be set back 1,000 feet from an occupied residence. And this is based on the fact that these businesses produce odor. It's similar to our feedlot ordinance where animal waste facilities need to be set back. We talk about things like odor controls and where these businesses, what sort of provisions they have to have for security and so forth. Some discussion of cannabis events related to the fact that events are either a special event under an ordinance that you've just instructed me to put together, or they are events that occur at a venue that's already permitted. And I think you well understand that we have resorts, wedding barns, and other places of public accommodation in our county that have previously been permitted as event venues. And then just like the other ordinance, anybody who applies for a cannabis business has to provide us certain information in that application, and that's laid out here in that subpart 6. So we have some definitions that we've added. Otherwise, these amendments would go into our zoning ordinance in the sections noted here, and other provisions of our ordinance would apply just like any other retail business, parking, things like that. So I will mention real quick as well, even in our zoning ordinance, the county is proposing to look at lower potency hemp edibles differently than adult use recreational cannabis. And what I mean by that is that if you already have a retail business where you're licensed to have off-sale liquor, or you have a business where you have a license to have on-site liquor sales and consumption, then you can have lower potency hemp in those businesses without any other additional special permitting. Otherwise, Planning Commission unanimously recommended that these amendments be adopted by the board and put into our zoning ordinance.
So Dave, that low potency, is there, again, I mean, there's just absolutely no rules on that right now because they are already being sold?
I wouldn't say that. I'd say what happened is that the state, when they passed their statutes, my understanding is they simply said that those businesses that wanted to sell lower potency hemp products simply had to register with the state. I also, it's my understanding that there wasn't a lot of enforcement associated with that. So some have gotten on that list to be registered and some have not. I believe at one of our work group meetings, public health folks informed us that there were 20 or so businesses in Douglas County that had been on that list. I personally have seen those products at some of the liquor stores in town, at bar restaurants. They're available. So, and Mr. Chair, if it helps, the state does intend that those businesses that are selling lower potency hemp edible products are also going to have to be licensed by the state. They're looking at that licensing taking place a little later here in 2025. I think they said fall. And we would require that they must be registered through the ordinance that you just passed and meet all of our zoning requirements that might apply.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Rush, why don't, and it's not just the THC in a can. I mean, when you're talking about alloys and creams and so, I mean, I know it sounds like it's just in a bar.
But we,
no.
Mr. Chair, yeah.
Well, there's
Mr.
cannabis,
Meyer,
there's hemp products that we rub on our bodies.
Yep, we exempted that because that's different.
It's
In fact,
different.
in our
Yeah.
use ordinance that you just passed, our use ordinance specifically exempts those products. And as I understand from our attorney in the cities, the statute exempts those things too. It doesn't list them in the same way. I'm sorry.
That'll be the interesting part. We've visited about this. I was on the committee and I understand.
So under section 8, cannabis use in public places,
Yep.
8D says the use of hemp-derived topical products and non-ingestible hemp-derived products shall not be restricted in public places and places of public accommodation. So if you want to put on your hemp hand lotion at the park while you're watching a concert or walking down the street, you may do that. You may not consume a lower potency hemp edible beverage at our public parks.
We need to get public health on this thing.
It's rather interesting.
Well, you know, the part of it, no, I shouldn't get on that about the education part of it, but, you know, we get, and I will tell you, everybody knows what I do for a living and everything else, and we don't serve it at FATS because of the complications. And we don't know, and it's gonna be controlled just like alcohol, I would guess, down the road by the distributors, which it needs to be in order to get the licensings properly. But when we talk about our young people, and we had the issues before with ingestibles and everything else about kids using mouthwashes. You know what I'm talking about, Mr. Rush, so. This
Lots
is
of
why I bring
things.
it up, and this is
Yep.
why I can't stand that we should ignore all these other ones, just because we've already been through this once before. I think it was called prohibition.
Mr. Chair, in our zoning ordinance, it also indicates under general requirements, this would be subpart, excuse me, this would be section 5, performance standards, subpart 4I, the retail sales of hemp-derived consumer and topical products and the retail sales of lower potency hemp edibles shall be exempt from the general requirements above. So we're exempting them from the setbacks and everything else. And again, these are products. In fact,
They're not supposed to be ingestible, we know that.
right. And you know, there's a staff person in my office, I walked by their cube today, and they have a hand lotion on their desk, and it's got a pretty 5-leafed flower on it. So, I mean, and as Mr. Meyer is aware, and I'm sure you all are as well, that these beverages are currently available at many locations in the county. So it was the desire of the work group. I think it's also the state's intention not to regulate these lower potency hemp products in the same way as they would be regulating the adult use cannabinoids and cannabis flower and that sort of thing.
Mr. Chair, I got a question. So, Mr. Rush, is any of this stuff getting inspected? Because
Yes.
do they get checked? Because I've heard there's some that are higher, some that are lower, and nobody's checking on them.
Yeah, I'll answer your question differently. The intent of the statute is that these products are to go through testing, that the state can randomly pull products and test them, that there will be testing facilities, that the manufacturers are supposed to be testing those products. But as to whether or not it's happening,
I will interject one thing, as you know, and so for your information, they're sold that way,
Right.
except, and this is why we did not get involved, not that we're that smart. As you well know, one serving is 5 milligram. So on the can, there's 10 because we're selling you a can with 2 servings in it. Okay.
statute
Give me a break.
allows 2 servings. So anyway,
Yeah,
It's kind of the same way when I am on my diet.
yep,
Read the bottle, you can only take 1 serving, so I can't eat all the M&Ms.
yep, you're not supposed to have 2 of the Twinkies, you're only supposed to eat 1.
That's exactly what, there's
And
closer to
wrap the other one up and put it away for later.
or the brownies or whatever else you're using.
All right, so
Okay, what do we got to
have
do
talked,
with
I think that's under pretty good detail there. I'm gonna say, if there's any other questions, we're gonna call the question.
We should make a motion, I
Oh,
suppose,
yeah,
first.
that helps.
I think we'll make a motion to approve the zoning ordinance.
Charlie, thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tim. Any other questions? If not, Lene, please.
Way,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Kalina,
Yes.
Rapp.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All righty.
Thank you, gentlemen, very much. We'll get those published and enforced. All right, switching gears a little bit. I'm sorry. Before I switch gears, one more thing to mention to you. So in this process of regulating cannabis, as I mentioned, the local government units have the ability to designate their registration authority. So a couple of weeks ago, we sent a letter out to cities and townships. I met with the townships at the annual association meeting, and we laid this out to them and offered that if they wanted to delegate that authority to register cannabis retail sales businesses with the county, they certainly could. In that letter, I indicated that, there's costs involved with that. The county can charge a registration fee, but it's controlled by the state and limited. The costs that the county might incur in doing the compliance checks and enforcement may go above and beyond what revenues we get from that registration. I indicated in the letter to specifically to the municipalities that the county may seek the cannabis sales tax that's rebated back from the state. And, I think all of this is very new to us at the county and new to the cities. I didn't really specify to them how much. So the cities commented back to me. I have a couple of comment letters here from Kensington, Evansville, and Brandon, and they would object to the county wanting all of the sales tax. They're open to working with the county. If they delegate that registration authority, they're open to working with us to make up the difference between what our fee revenue might be and the actual costs. They'd really like us to see what those actual costs might be. So I don't need a motion, but I just wanted to, by consensus, if it's all right with the board, I will send out a letter letting them know that we won't seek that we'd be happy to work with those municipalities as long as they're understanding that we may need to invoice them or in some other way recover some of those compliance costs where we're doing that work.
Mr. Chair, do you have, in that letter, did you give them a deadline to get back to you on the registration? So we know,
I said as soon as possible. That
ASAP
letter went
is
out.
all we-
Yeah.
the
that
next letter we should, I suppose, so we know if we're representing all
Yeah, they
the,
need
all the
to-
villages and townships.
Yep, and
Okay.
I think they know that. They're feeling a
They're
little
supposed to,
pressure
but
right now
that doesn't
too.
mean you get the notice right away. but
Yeah.
Sometime before.
I've gotten a few, I think some of them are ready to do it, but the municipalities paused for a minute.
They
as
have to
look
have a lot of them only meet once a month, so.
Yeah. So my expectation is when I send this letter out, if you're amenable to that, I'll send that letter out via email today. Those cities will see it here this week and hopefully at their April meeting act on that and we'll know at
It's a
that
good
time.
idea to do a follow-up.
Okay, board consensus then on that? Good? Yes.
Okay, great, thank you. All right. So into my regular business items, the first item I have for you are some excavator landscaper licenses. We don't have any issue with those listed in your packet and recommend approval.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the licenses for excavators.
Thank you, Shane.
I second that.
Thank you, Jeff.
The next couple items are from,
Don't we have to?
I'm sorry.
Lene.
Lene?
Meyer,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Kalina,
Yes.
Rapp,
Yes.
Way,
Yeah,
motion carries.
All right.
Thank you. Just trying to get back on schedule here. Next few items from our planning commission meeting. The first being a conditional use permit to allow a 43-unit RV campground. This would be in Home City Township on Oscar Lake. Planning commission reviewed this application. It meets all of our ordinance requirements, does not exceed any of the standards that we have for campgrounds or commercial plan unit developments as we refer to them. We did hear some comments from members of the public who have property on or around Oscar Lake. They had some concerns about the traffic and the noise that this might bring additional boat traffic to their area. And our planning commission did hear that. They opted to change one of the conditions in here. The applicant originally sought to have 25 watercraft mooring sites, and the planning commission did approve this with the conditions, but limited the watercraft mooring to 15. So if you have any questions, otherwise it was unanimously recommended for approval at the planning commission meeting.
Mr. Chair, on number 12, it doesn't say anything about the 15, it just says 25. Because I'm the one who brought that up to
Yeah.
15. And I said if they needed more later, they could come back.
Yeah, my apologies. Somebody in my office took the wrong.
So that should be changed to
Yeah,
15.
it should, thank you, Mr. Kalina.
Not to exceed 15.
Not to exceed 15, and if they,
Correct.
well, it wasn't here, but we said that they could come back to get a, what was that, a conditional use permit if they needed more than 15, up to 25?
Yeah, correct. At any time, you know, a conditional use permit can be amended through the same process that it was approved. In fact, you're going to be considering one of those here in a couple minutes.
And then on number 20, all requirements of Minnesota Department of Transportation shall be met. That was to put in that right turn lane. Could that be added in there
Well,
or not?
I-
Being it's Minnesota Department of Transportation.
well, and Mr. Chair, I understand your concern. The DOT actually is also still considering the emergency approach that we we recommended that it be in there.
The one to the east.
The one to the east and DOT, they're split on it. Some of the folks at their office up there think it's a good idea, and some of them think that it's one access per property. So I think, as always, we want to support what the DOT, well, maybe that's not the right statement. Many times we want to support DOT because it's a public safety thing. And in this circumstance, I'm hopeful that they will allow the emergency access, given the conditions that we're proposing, that it be signed and gated as such.
Well, with that, I will make a motion to approve.
Thank you, Tim.
I second that.
Thank you, Jeff. Just got one question for you, Dave, and that was, is there anything, I mean, as far as the retention ponds, that's all taken care of? Is there anything there that is not?
So, no, so the work that they do there, if it disturbs more than an acre, they'll be required by the state to get what's called an NPDES construction stormwater permit. And if they create more than an acre of permanent impervious, they'll have to treat for water quality. So we've simply said that that's the standard that they have to meet, and they've got to bring that to us to review. So they need to do some designing yet on that facility, but they'll have to meet those standards if you implement this permit with those conditions.
All right, very well. Oh, wait, go
Chair,
ahead.
I got one more question for David, that I really want to go with what Tim said too. I really would like to see a second exit in there for emergency purposes. You have a tornado come through and shut one down, you can't even get in, you can't get out, and these are going to be campers, and I really think we need to push the state in our way of thinking.
And we couldn't agree more,
Okay.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Schmidt. The condition number 15 lays out a secondary
Right.
access shall be maintained, and we've said how, in order to make sure that it's not a primary entrance. That would be a safety concern for the state. But I stress to the state folks from the DOT office that we believe that gaining access, a secondary access, and given our experiences in recent times with the tornado, you need access. If the primary access is blocked by anything, we need to go in on a secondary access.
Well, worst case scenario, build the approach and gate it. You can always cut a chain.
That's what we figured. We wanted it
Okay.
gated, and the gate could just be pushed open.
All right, thanks.
You'll find a way to do it.
Lastly,
I know Julie supports me.
Mr. Chair, is there any way for a safety shelter?
Mr. Chair, yes,
in
they're proposing to put a storm shelter in on the facility. They have it shown on their diagram here, a proposed storm shelter. It's on the west side of the facility, just south of the in-drive. And we agree with that.
Charlie, it's on this.
Yeah, no, I know. I took a look at that.
And sometimes, I mean, again, we don't want to specify exactly where it is. They may choose that there's a manager house or something, and they build an extra large basement in it or something like that. But we do want to have that sort of facility available.
okay, any other questions? All right, Lene, please.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Kalina,
Yes.
Rapp,
Yes.
Way,
Yes.
Meyer.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. My next item is an amendment to a conditional use permit that was issued back in 2017. This is Central Marine and Sports. They are, right now, they're a marine sales and service storage commercial operation, and they have an individual that would like to come and do firearms sales and repair and permit to carry out of that retail facility. So they'd like to amend their conditional use permit to include retail sales of sporting goods, shooting, sports, hunting, fishing, outdoor recreation, assembly, and repair of firearms, firearm accessories, and firearm training. Planning Commission looked at this, had no issue with the retail part. They did have some concern with the live fire area. One, they just wanted to ensure that it was set up in a way that was safe for residences and properties around that facility, and then also that the time of its use was limited as much as possible. So in some discussions with the applicant, Planning Commission recommended approval with the conditions that include that the hours of shooting for training and test firing would be limited to 12 noon to 2, Friday and Saturday only, and that they have to, as you can see in the requirements, it has to have a berm constructed behind it at least 10 feet tall, and that the line of fire would be from the northwest to the southeast, which as measured from that area is well over a half mile from any residential occupied property. So Planning Commission recommended approval.
All right, board's wishes.
Mr. Chair, I got a question. Is this for pistols only or shotguns, rifles? Did you limit to any of that?
Mr. Chair,
It was my understanding it was firearms.
That's everything.
Yeah.
yeah, I believe we said in here,
I know he's doing it for the permit to carry classes, so that's why I
yeah,
was
it's
curious.
pistol mostly is what he's intending to
Correct.
use it for.
Mostly is one thing, and that's, you can do that in a garage because you only gotta shoot 21 feet. But if you're gonna use a rifle, and if we're gonna do that, I was talking to the guys out at the shooting park and what the requirements to make that,
want a tunnel.
you gotta build yourself
A tunnel.
a tunnel.
So
I mean, to make it legal. And
Yeah.
I mean, we don't want to set something up if we say okey doke and then they start shooting 30-06s or,
right, we did say in the proposed conditions that the approval of this permit does not authorize target shooting of rifles and other small arms on the property.
target shooting. They don't have to shoot at a target.
Right, so what we're saying is if they're gonna test fire, that's primarily what the applicant wants is he builds custom hunting rifles, he wants to test fire them. He does that at close range, he's just making sure that they're operating. And then for permit to carry, they're shooting pistols.
Yeah.
He has a bullet trap that was designed and meets NRA standards, and then we're requiring the backstop in addition to that.
And that is a big swamp that they're shooting back through, right?
That's the direction that we're requiring that they shoot to the southeast over
Yeah, I see that.
what locally is referred to as Looker's Lake.
All right. Okay, did we?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion
right.
to approve.
Thank you, Shane.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tim. Lene, please.
Kalina.
Yes.
Rapp.
Yes.
Way.
Yes.
Meyer.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All righty.
Yeah, there's still more. The next item I have for you is a preliminary plat. This is Chainview Estates. This is located in Carlos Township, just west of Lake Carlos along County Road 11. They would be proposing 51 residential lots and 2 outlots on approximately 90 acres. So this area is and has been zoned for some time residential. It has services available to it, including Alexandria Lakes Area Sanitary District. The public road there has been rebuilt and reclassified based on projected increases in traffic. Our comprehensive plan also identifies this area as proposed future residential use at densities that would make infrastructure there financially effective. So Planning Commission had a hearing on this. Many of the neighbors attended that hearing. and expressed a number of concerns. One of the concerns was the traffic that it would add to the area. There is a road proposed that would intersect with County Road 11 and head to the north, connecting up with Birchwood Road, which today is a U-shaped township road. And then a road to the northwest, which would not terminate at the property line. And they just expressed concerns with the 50 housing units there, the amount of traffic that would add to County Road 11, and that area is already congested due to the recreational uses that occur there, both in terms of vehicles, motorcycles, and pedestrians and so forth. There were some other concerns raised related to groundwater. There are properties along the lake and residential properties there that have wells for their drinking water. Many of those wells are screened fairly shallowly at 50 to 100 feet. And so there was some concern raised by the neighbors that putting 50 wells in this development, what kind of impact would that have on the groundwater resources in that area? And then there were also some concerns related to the aesthetics, that many of the folks who live in that area understood that that property was in agricultural use, and they had expected, hoped that it would remain in that use for a period of time longer. So Planning Commission considered those. Ultimately, they did recommend approval of the preliminary plat. They had some discussion about some of the conditions that we proposed, one of which had to do with the groundwater. Number 8 proposes that a groundwater supply study be completed in that area to determine if the groundwater resources could supply that development without negatively impacting the quality or quantity of drinking water for existing homes, or if it was such that a communal water supply might be necessary to supply this development. That's an objective, a policy that comes right out of our 2011 comp plan that recommends that developments with over 25 residential units should have some sort of communal water supply. Planning Commission felt that at least a study should be completed, as this would be the first time that we would implement this sort of requirement on a housing development. I believe you received a letter in the last day or so, but if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Yeah, I guess I just got a few here. If this development goes in there, is there going to be any effect on any farming practices of joining lands?
So I'm not sure your question, but does this, if your question is, does this development change the zoning requirements? It does not.
Well, say if a neighbor wants to put livestock in.
It's a residential zoned area. Because it's an agricultural use, they could graze livestock on those fields because they're in an agricultural use today, but they could not put a feedlot in because it's zoned residential.
Okay. Well, I think when they zoned that residential, in my opinion, it was, that was a mistake, but that's hindsight. But the other question I've got, and that is on when it comes to the development here, and it's hooked up to ALSD, which some people think is great, but it's really putting a whole lot more of a problem on our discharge water because it's impaired water that's coming out of there. And personally, I think when you get into a development like this that can have an on-site sewer, it should. And the one thing that needs to be done, in my opinion, and that is that any water softener discharge, if it's zero salt discharge, it can go into the sewer. If it's not, it must be, have a drain field on the site instead of putting it into the sanitary sewer. I mean, this idea that we keep putting pressure on that sanitary sewer and we think that we're doing something good, we're not. we're adding more impaired water.
Mr. Chair, and your comments are well received. I will have you recall that about 2 years ago, we had a development on Lake Ida and had required that development to all of the homes that had water softeners had to discharge to some sort of ground infiltration or drain field area. The developer was quite displeased with that, and about a year later, this board chose to remove that requirement from that development. So I certainly think it's a reasonable thing to do. If it's something that you choose to do, you sure can. I do know that the sanitary district is involved in a number of efforts to try to reduce the amount of salt that comes from those softeners, and provide incentives so we have on-demand or no salt softeners that go in. But right now, there would be no requirement for them to separate that backwash water from either RO or softener recharge.
Okay, well, commissioners, I ask you, I mean, when we do this, we're knowingly creating and not fixing a problem that is causing a problem in our chain of lakes. And I just think that not to address that on a development like this, we are absolutely being our own worst enemy. And I really, I mean, that to me is just not acceptable to address that in a way that it does not end up in ALSD, end up into our lakes, and then we try to figure out what to do with it. It's too late. So that to me, if that's not addressed, it doesn't get fixed. I mean, to me, it needs to be fixed. That's a big roadblock for me.
Mr. Rush, I got a question. Having 51 wells out there versus having a communal well, what's the difference between the two?
So I think we often think about groundwater as though, you know, we live in a bathtub and we can punch a hole in there and there's a vast reservoir of water underneath. And unfortunately, in some cases that is true. In others, you have smaller, discrete sources of water in the ground that you might tap into with a well. So the big question is, in the case of individual wells on the, say, the northwest end of this development, it could be there's a sizable sand deposit in there that has enough water to supply 4 or 5 homes. And then, you know, on the south, maybe there's another deposit that can supply 4 or 5 homes. Or it may be that there is a significantly sized aquifer there that you can punch a bunch of holes into and it can supply as much water as you want. It may also be that at greater depth, there's a larger aquifer that collectively creating a communal water supply is more cost effective to punch one deeper well in and do the treatment of it than to try to reach it with 52 different wells. I think that's really the purpose of the groundwater study, is to say what kind of resources do we have down there? Is there a large enough resource that putting 50 wells in isn't going to cause any sort of diminished water supply for other users or people within the development? Or are there just a number of discrete aquifers there? And really, if you're going to supply the whole development, there's only a couple places you can punch a hole and get enough water to supply the whole development. That's the question that I'm hoping that the study provides us answers to.
And I lived in front of this proposed development here for 25 years. I had a 68-foot well, and I had extremely hard water. It was really, so I can just about guarantee you that they're going to have hard water.
Mr. Chair, I got a question for Dave. If somebody decided on this 90 acres to punch an irrigation well and irrigate that 90 acres, would there be any restrictions on that?
The state would, they'd have to get a permit from the state to irrigate, and I'll just say that the regulations require that the state look into trying to determine if that irrigation well is going to cause any sort of issue with the neighboring well. And if it doesn't, then the state issues that permit. I don't want to editorialize much on that, but that hasn't always been carried out that way by the state. Recently, they've been doing a much more thorough job of investigating that.
But that's what I was just wondering, if somebody did punch an irrigation well there, if there would be any control on that.
Once this development goes in, there sure would be.
Once the development went in, but you're talking, the wells you're talking about are today, and if you know as well as I do, if you punch an irrigation well in there, they're gonna dry up every one of them sand points there are within an area.
So there is an irrigation well about a half or 3/4 of a mile west, adjacent to Mr. Rapp's brother's property, Gathered Oaks.
Yep.
Has an 8-inch well put in that can pump over 800 gallons a minute and does not impact any of the wells around it.
Aquifer then.
Mr. Chair, I got a question for Dave then. So before we move forward with this report's gonna get done, it's gonna come back to you so you can report back
Well-
to the planning commission or someone saying, well, they need to do this or do that?
Yeah, that's, so the way
No,
this
it's
was-
in here, I just wanna make sure it
Yeah.
happens.
Well, and that's what I'd like you as a board to be aware of. So, and I pointed this out to the planning commission. So to allow them to move forward with this without having to come back to a board meeting, it does say that that report will be submitted to the land and resource director, and the director will make the decision.
Okay,
What I did point out to the planning commission is if the applicant doesn't agree with the determination that I come to, they certainly can come back to you and appeal the condition that they don't want to see it on there, or they don't agree. Or there is a provision in our ordinance that says that any administrative decision that I make can be appealed to the Board of Adjustment. So I think they have recourse there if they don't like my answer.
I still have the other part too, what Jerry said with softeners. I still think something needs to be done there. We're just gonna dump it all in the sewer.
I agree.
It's gonna go right back into the water.
Without that on there or being addressed, I'm out. Because that, to me, we're not doing our due diligence if we continue to let this continue.
Then you need to table it.
Well,
Or you
I
add
mean,
it, makes a motion with it added. Can you do that?
What's that?
Can he make a motion to add it in there that they have to do a drain field for the softeners?
Absolutely. You can make any motion and recommend any condition you want.
I'm, like I said, I mean, to me, that has to be addressed. It got bias on Lake Ida, which bothered me ever since.
We changed our mind. We
Well-
shouldn't have done that.
Shouldn't have.
We should sit down with Mr. Rush and come up with it, because we had it stopped for a while. Not very long, but
But just because it costs money doesn't mean we can pollute water.
all the salt and all the phosphorus headed into Winona, which ends up in our chain of lakes, is what's
Or they gotta
causing
go to
all
the other
these
softeners.
problems.
Yeah, well, that's right.
There's other
That's
softeners
right.
out there.
That's right. So that salt discharge has to be identified so that it does not end up in the ALSD sewer.
So what we had, and I don't have it sitting in front of me, but my recollection of that condition is that any property that had water supplied to it and had a water softener that used salt as the backwashing agent
Discharge,
could not discharge to central sewer, but had to have an on-site system to which that backwash water could be discharged.
yep.
Okay. I certainly, if that's what you're proposing, I can resurrect that language and include it in here if that's the motion that you're
Well,
making.
to me, it has to be in there. It has to. Make the motion. All right, I'll make that motion that you add the water softener discharge water be fixed or taken care of before anything moves forward on this project. Right. Okay, we're clear there, right?
Yes, sir.
All righty.
Need a motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Shane. Any other questions?
What about like the 51 wells versus the communal wells? I think we need to have a study on that.
Well,
It's in here.
So that's required, Mr. Chair. On condition number 8 says that they have to complete a study and supply that study to me, and that I would make that determination.
all right. Is that good?
Yeah.
All right. All righty.
Okay. Rapp,
Yes.
Way,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Kalina.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. County feedlot.
Yeah, so every year, our feedlot program provides a report to you on our accomplishments from the previous year and ask that you sign that so we can pass it on to the agency. We've been very fortunate the past, gosh, I don't know, Mark, 7, 8 years. Mark has been our feedlot coordinator in the office and just does a fabulous job. I don't know if you communicate with some of your constituents out there, but if they interact with Mark, I think he just does a fabulous job helping many of our operators through growth and rule change and, you know, when farms turn over. He's just done a terrific job with that. So Mark's going to give you a little report today, and if you have any questions, feel free to ask him.
All right, good morning. Yeah, so you should have the annual report in front of you. It goes into great detail on all the different things that the state evaluates the county on. I'll just hit some of the high points, I guess. You'll notice inspection number in there. It's lower than it maybe would have been in the past, and that's because we focused a lot on other things that we can get additional money for that we could not get before, like pit closures. Something that Todd County and Douglas and Stearns have been advocating for years is we get no money from the state whenever we do pit closures or projects like that. They only, or a lot of those don't have animals anymore, or they don't have enough, so that we don't get any sort of credits for them. Now we do. We get roughly $1,100 for each of those. So, so our focus has been more so on things that are on the ground work that can get done and there's money for. If there's not money for anything, there's only so far you should really pursue that, in my opinion. So, so we've kind of focused where the money is, whether that's location or type of project. So there a lot of those types of inspections and work will not show up in this report. So I'll go through some of that stuff, I guess. And so this year here in a couple months, we should get an additional approximately $9,000 for that work, that most of which is not going to be reflected in here. Hasn't been a lot of projects going on in 2024. There was one that finished up. We have one that you should see here in a few weeks in front of you. But the prices are good, obviously, for the cattle guys, the beef guys, very good. The problem is it's hard to build a barn and fill it. You can build it, but you can't fill it, or you can fill it, but you can't build it. So it's hard to do both. So not a lot of big projects, but there are a couple. So other things throughout the past year, starting last May, I took over as president for our employee organization for the feedlot officers across the state. So one of the joys of that was a couple weeks ago, I got to go to St. Paul and speak in front of the House Environment and Natural Resources Committee. Just advocating for our funding level where we're at across the state. So we'll see where that goes. The budget status is what it is. So looking forward, one of the main things we'll be working on, just last week, the agency released their intention to begin a rulemaking process. So that's going to change the 70-20 rules, which is essentially aside from our ordinance, 90% of what I do is this little green rule book here of state rules, and that's primarily what I would enforce when I'm out doing inspections or doing permitting. So they haven't given any specifics. They gave a list of 9 questions and very broad, pretty much everything will be open. So over the course of the next 2 or 3 years, I'll be fairly involved with that just because of my role in the organization. And then the county obviously will have some say in that as well. So that's something big we'll be looking at. And depending on what comes of that, there may be changes that need to be made to our ordinance if it contradicts whatever that state rule ends up being. So that's kind of where we're at and where we're going. Entertain any questions.
I just have one, and that is, would you say that we've lost head count on cattle in the county again?
Yeah, I would say so. Kind of like a lot of other years, mostly on the dairy side. Guys that are in beef probably don't really want to get out of beef right now, as good as the prices are. But we're seeing a lot of sites that, used to be farms, used to be family farms 20, 30, 40 years ago. And now, someone in their 20s or 30s has moved in there. Maybe they got 20, 30 acres and they want to have 10, 15, 20 beef. So we see a lot of that. So just visited 2 of those yesterday morning. So we see a lot of that. And that's work that will not show up in the report because of the size they are.
Got it.
Mr. Chair, Mark, closing pits, if it's not a active livestock operation and they sell to one of these, do they have to close that thing before they?
There is no, Mr. Chair, there's no requirement that they be closed, kind of like what it would be with a sewer system, right? The sewer
Right.
system, you either have to get it upgraded or escrow money. There's no process like that. I believe there's one county in the state that does require that and treats it like a septic system, essentially.
Well, that wouldn't be a dumb thing to do for Douglas County, would it? There's probably more, because we know the land isn't as attractive for agriculture as much as it with the water. But I don't know how many pits are around that aren't
Right.
being active.
Yeah, I have a very good list of them. That
Okay.
is there's still approximately 30, maybe 35 that are not used, and in all likelihood they won't be used again.
It'll never be used again.
And,
probably.
just
It's
the-
like a capped well, but the state has that number, or we do, or whatever.
Right, and there's a process for them to reuse that pit, but most of them are fairly small, and the engineering and work they have to do that, it's almost cheaper to just start new than it is to try to get the approval to reuse this old one. So, yeah, there's 30 to 35 of them.
Yeah, and I just want to add is, when they're not being used, they're not harming nothing. There's no pollution there.
So,
Be a safety hazard, that's all I'm saying.
I would have to say, for what I know of them, it's minimal.
If you grew up there, it's one thing.
Yeah, yeah.
If you're not from the
But they
farm,
don't-
it's a different
Very,
thing.
very few hold water anymore. I don't know of any that hold water.
yeah, so a lot of them don't hold water, so which means really the nutrient levels is actually pretty amazing when we've tested some of them that haven't been in use for 30 years even. And you test them, or you test the soil beneath them when we close them, and they're pretty hot yet. So there's actually quite a bit of nitrogen that still can leach down, and if it's not holding water, that means that nitrogen's going down towards groundwater. So even if they're not being used, there's still quite the potential for contamination or environmental concerns. And if they are holding water and there's no fence around them, certainly a lot of them you can't get back out of if you fall in. So a kid can drown in them.
Reason that, yeah.
Right, so there's the safety aspect, but there is still the environmental aspect we
There is
found.
an environmental one. I'm surprised you're not in favor, buddy.
They go spread it on the ground. They spread the same stuff on the.
We have been spreading that for years.
I know.
You and I.
Okay, all right. So, do you need action on that?
Yeah, I'd be requesting approval of the annual report.
I make a motion to approve the Douglas County 24 annual feedlot report.
Thank you, Jeff.
I'll second. Thank you, Mark.
Yeah. Thank you, Charlie. Lene, please.
Way,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Kalina,
Yes.
Rapp.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
guys.
And if you have nothing else, I've used enough of your time this morning.
No, we're running overtime here. All righty. Nick Larson, please. Nick Larson.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Nick Larson. I am the new trail administrator for Data Trails.
All right.
Started December 2nd this year, and I'm here to request that Douglas County sponsor us as a trail association with the state of Minnesota and the DNR.
Alrighty, well, snowmobiling was probably not a really big thing last year, but
No, we had a brown year last
Yeah,
year.
it was brown, yeah.
This year, we did get out and groom for 3 weeks.
Darn.
People were excited. We had people
Alright.
coming from all over the state. We were one of the few trails open
Okay.
in the area.
all right.
Are you gonna open them back up now, Nick?
Yeah.
Kind of figured that. Welcome aboard, by the way.
Yeah, welcome, yeah. Okay, gentlemen, we have a resolution here.
I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2528 for Data County sponsorship.
Thank you, Shane. Second. Thank you, Charlie. Lene, please.
Meyer,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Kalina,
Yes.
Rapp,
Yes.
Way.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All righty, you're good to go. Thank you.
Welcome aboard.
Yep, thank you. Well, I've got one name here, Willie Swanson. Who's the other guy?
This is Jared Tabor. I'm Willie Swanson, District Supervisor for.
All right,
Jared's the Program Director for
very
us.
well.
So thank you, Mr. Chair. We'd like to come today and just give an overview of the department, and then at the end, talk about the new position that was created a year ago that we'll
Okay.
and ask for. So, as you'll see.
Talk right into that mic if you
pull it
like.
closer.
Or pull it
As you'll see, Mr. Chair, in our department, we have 7 agents. We've got 3.1 support staff. That's over 4 positions. We have a half position and then a 0.6 position. Myself and Jared are involved as well. The clients that we supervise are up on the screen. I won't read through all the numbers for you. We have 675 total active clients. We also have about 200 clients that are inactive, meaning they've been transferred out or they're on warrant status. Our numbers can fluctuate basically from day to day, but right around 900 total clients are the clients that we're supervising in the community. And as you flip to the next slide, it'll show the things that we're doing. We do a lot of condition compliance. Clients come over with a list of court orders, things they have to comply with, and we are enforcing those court orders with our clients, providing service coordination, meaning helping people get into treatment programming and other sorts of programming. But one of the main things that we're doing differently over the last couple of years are the things that research shows us reduces recidivism, because our main goal is to be a public safety agency. So we do lots of cognitive programming with folks, one-on-one targeted interventions on the way people think and how they solve problems. And those things really lead over time is what reduces recidivism long-term. Our goal is to have somebody come and work with us, leave us, and never come back again. That's sort of our service model. As you'll see on the next slide, we have our recidivism numbers. In Douglas County, at the 1-year mark, the recidivism number is 92%, meaning after 1 year, when a person's been discharged, only 8% of those are committing new felonies and coming back to us. At the 2-year mark, we're at 83%. What I think is important to note here is that is an average of both probation and supervised release clients in Douglas County. Supervised release folks are coming out of prison, and the probation folks are in the community. What's important to note there is the statewide number for supervised release clients for recidivism is 69%. So our combined number is much higher than the statewide combined number. And that goes back to those interventions we're doing and programming we're doing, like domestic violence programming for clients, which I think is making a big impact. On the next slide is one thing that I'm very proud of with our staff. Our staff are involved in a great number of local communities, committees, and other things targeted to, again, public safety and just the overall betterment of the community. I think we have a great staff here. The majority of them are local. They're invested in the community, and they really do good work, both at work, but also outside of work and on their own time. They're putting in a lot of hours to help out with the community. And that's something I'm very proud of and want to brag about them a little bit. So moving to the pretrial supervision position. A year ago, we had a pretrial program in the county that was run through a private firm, and there were many problems with that, from communication to availability of staff. The court came to us and said, this isn't working, we'd like to do something new. So we sat down with the court, the attorneys, law enforcement, and came up with a plan, came to the board, and were given approval to add a half position back to do pretrial in-house, which is what we do now. Our pretrial agent right now has 42, that number also changes, so I think today it's closer to 50 active clients. They're doing the bail bond screens and the pre-sentence investigations for court before a person goes in, so all that reporting. They're also doing lots and lots of urinalysis testing with clients. So far, we're at about a 30% positive UA rate, so 3 out of 10 come in positive. The vast majority of those positive tests are for marijuana. Next on the list at about equal rates are alcohol and methamphetamine. And most of the positive tests we're seeing are combined. So it's multiple substances that a person is positive for as they're coming in. Response to that is issuing A&D orders, having a person in court the next day after they've been taken into custody, and then readdressing those conditions. So we're able to very promptly and quickly address those things at the pretrial phase that we think are going to decrease failures to appear, reduce recidivism long-term, and in the end, promote public safety. One of the other things that I think is important to note, we're only charging $10 a test, and that is basically paying for all of our testing and all of our confirmation testing in our office. So that, with the $10 a test, it's a pretty low rate comparatively to what privates are charging, but in the end, it doesn't cost us a whole lot of money on our end to do that. So I think that's a pretty effective way to run that program so far. We're working with the court, hopefully to get some long-term numbers on the failure to appear rates so we can see where we are missing the mark maybe and improve some things from that end. And we're hopeful that the board will continue that position moving forward. I'm not sure if we need a motion on that and a vote on that.
Well, it says this, all information here, I don't know, so I'd say not.
Not today. That's what I got,
Yeah.
informational only.
Yeah.
Okay, good deal. So then, that's basically the update. The next slide talks about budget. And overall in Douglas County, the budget for office is about $545,000 a year. And the state subsidy back to Douglas County is right around $420,000, meaning it's $135,000 a year that it costs Douglas County to run probation services, the whole shoot and match that we just talked about. There is a bill on the floor, or a bill being considered that would increase that funding to fully fund, meaning the rate that Douglas County would pay would be nothing. But with what's going on in St. Paul, yeah, I never know what's going to happen with that. I'm not real confident there, but it is being considered at this point. So that is our overview, and the main thing that I wanted to come was to introduce ourselves, talk about our department a little bit, and then ask if there's any other questions that you have or things that you would like to hear from us in the future.
Well, yeah, I do have a couple of questions, and that goes back to your first slide where it has 335 misdemeanor clients. So anybody that has a misdemeanor is a client, or how does that work?
Not every misdemeanor is placed on supervision.
So where's the divide? What triggers that?
The majority of misdemeanors that we have would be things like disorderly conduct, some domestic assault type things. It's person offenses, some theft offenses would be included. Things like driving without a license or the IC, those
So
kind of
you
things.
guys determine that then?
The court determines that,
determines
yes,
that.
and we're
Okay.
in connection with them on what makes
Okay.
sense to supervise and what doesn't, yes.
And then do you share positions with other counties as far as helping other counties?
So the only positions that we share would be myself and Jared, because we're among the district, and our district is Wright County, Douglas County, and Meeker County.
Oh.
So the two of us are involved in those three areas, and we have one senior support staff that gives some help to the other two, but the vast majority of us are supervising this county. There's a little bit of bleed over with our sex offender agent into Pope Grant and Stevens and some of those areas, just from that perspective, but those are relatively few clients that involves.
And so you talked about testing marijuana. Will that decline with the legalization of it?
So no, our clients, even though it's illegal, just like alcohol is illegal, they're still prohibited from use without a prescription.
I got it. That's my questions.
Mr. Chair, I got a question. On the $10 fee to the client, you said it doesn't cover it all. Are you considering raising that a little bit, or
We're
11
gonna-
bucks, 12 bucks to try and offset that?
We're going to look at that every year to see
Okay.
where we land. The overall number of tests, some of those tests are also used by our other agents, and they aren't pretrial clients. So there's a little bit of bleed over in the numbers. But we'll keep looking at that on an annual
Okay.
basis. Yes.
Any other questions?
You said you guys, are you the same at Wright County
Yes.
also?
Yep.
Because they're almost 100,000 now. That's probably pretty busy in comparison.
Yeah. The numbers in Wright County.
Yeah, they're over
yes.
double the size of Douglas. Okay.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, but we are, myself and Jared are very intentional about spending equal amounts of time everywhere. So it's not a situation where we ignore one for the other. We're in it for all three equally. So.
Okay.
So do you have any more stuff, or does that kind of cover you?
That kind of covers it for today.
Well, like I said, I mean, anybody got any other questions? I mean, it's informational only, so we'll just take that and go with it.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for
showing
the
up.
work you do.
Thank
See
you.
you again.
All righty, we will do a quick 5-minute break. How's that? Back to order here, and Brent, you are up next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Provided you folks with some revised and one new policy. There wasn't too many pages worth there. I think all told, I think there was only about 7 pages of text, so I didn't bury it too bad. But these are policies that both the IT steering committee and department heads have had a chance to review. Some of the highlights were updated in the request for board action. And not to get into too many details, I'm just wondering if there's any questions off the top.
I don't have any. How about the rest of the board?
Nope.
I like how you got it done, drawing lines and stuff through it. Makes it easier to read.
So the next steps, providing that these are approved today, is we will update our IT policy handbook, which is a collection of the IT policies, put it on our DC net, which is our local internet. And then we will also notify the department heads with pending updates to how we're managing our email in particular. So that'll be taking shape over the next few weeks.
Mr. Chair, I got a question. I haven't seen any no before things come through. How many times a year do you do that?
We're just keeping you honest there, Mr. Colina.
Get caught.
We do quarterly tests,
Quarterly.
and the
Okay.
date is April 1st, so be aware. You thought you were smooth sailing.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the IT policy updates.
Thank you, Shane.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tim. Lenny, please.
Rapp,
Yes.
Way,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Kalina.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Tim is next. Excuse me.
He's been mistaken.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of resentment.
Where's that computers? Yes.
Good morning.
Morning.
So just a few items on the agenda, but the most important one that I have actually is not on the agenda, and that was to make certain that you guys see I've got Mike Anderson with me. If you haven't had the chance to meet Mike, I think you all kind of
Yeah,
have,
we did. I did.
but in case you haven't, Mike Anderson, our drainage and egg inspector. He's been with us for a month so far, and he keeps coming to work, so I think that's a good sign.
All right, good deal.
He says yes. That's a
Good
good.
deal.
First item that we do have, you got a little report in your packet. Back in 2020, we leased a tractor that's used between drainage and egg in the parks. That lease is up. We've got the option, we can either keep leasing it or we can purchase it outright. Our recommendation is that we purchase it outright, and we're just looking for approval.
Mr. Exton, I got a question. Why are we leasing equipment and all that?
I think that's a fantastic question. It's actually one that I've asked as well. So this tractor came through right about the time that I was coming in, and so they had everything kind of lined up and ready to roll. I'm not a huge fan of leasing equipment, especially stuff like this. So
Mr.
I
Chair.
would like to make the motion to buy it out, the remaining, and get it taken care of.
I was just going to respond to Jeff. Sometimes that's a question you should ask Jill, because sometimes you can expense it, and she's got her hand up. She can explain that to you a little better.
I'd actually prefer you don't, please, if you don't have to. There's a couple of reasons. One, for budgeting, these is easier for budgeting purposes. But with the new GASB 87 standards, we have to do a whole lot more with the equipment leases than we ever had to do before. And there's a cost associated from an audit perspective for the leases as well, which we didn't historically have.
It's exactly right. I tell you, I've been on that board a long time, and the previous director didn't mind, and neither did the board, leasing because it was so much easier and quicker, and you always had, his argument, you always had new equipment, not always, but you know what I mean. It wouldn't, easier to, but then when it come to disposal, you're not out there on K-bid trying to sell things and so on and so forth. So, but after the time I've spent here, it's no different than any lease or rent. I've learned to despise all of that, because the county should either own or not, one way or the other. It's a heck of a lot cleaner and easier to manage, so.
I got one more question for him, Tim. How long do you think we'll keep this now?
Probably around another year or two.
And then you're gonna look at
Forever, we
replacing.
own it now.
Right.
That's where I was going. I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, but I just want to say, I mean, if a piece of equipment is running good and I don't have a problem with keeping something that gets a little older too, as long as it's running good. I mean,
Still running around in your
I still got
1950, what?
old tractors from 1950, so.
And they still run.
Yeah, so we have a motion and a second there. Is that right?
Yes.
Lene?
Way,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Kalina,
Yes.
Rapp.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Next item that we have is to approve an ATV purchase. So this is something that we do have in the budget. We are quite a bit under the budget. I had our drainage and ag folks look through, get some different price quotes. We've made the recommendation to purchase the Can-Am Outlander from Ollie Service.
I'll make a motion to approve ATV purchase from Ollie Service.
Thank you, Tim.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Shane. All righty. Lene, please.
Meyer,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Kalina,
Yes.
Rapp.
Yes.
Way.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you, Mike.
Yeah, you look at how old the old one is, 1998.
What was?
I got a 96 in
Why?
it, and I
That would look
I
like a
trust
bigger
it.
unit for less
Really, it's a
money?
good
But
one.
if you went
Because
through
they
what
looked
this
at how it
ATV
was,
went through,
Really? All right.
Yep.
They were looking at how they were going to use it, and they felt that this one was going to actually work better for their purposes.
Yeah, it said on the rack was better and it could probably hold the sprayer better and other
Right.
things that they had listed.
It's a lighter weight and it can hold the sprayer better?
Well, the rack on it.
No. All right.
I-
You
I'm-
guys must know more than I do on it.
Better balance.
I'm taking their recommendation because they're going to use it. So I won't force that one on them.
All right.
Next item that we have is to approve some quitclaim deeds to Norlings Edition property owners. So this is something that I brought Pat over to kind of explain a little bit, because when I do it, everything sounds like magic when I explain surveying.
We have a quiet title action going with the fairgrounds in the city right now, that we approved at the last meeting. So this will kind of clean up that little property overlap with Norderlings Edition. It's probably less than a quarter of an acre there, those 4 little parcels. I think it's only about 9 feet on the north side, and it comes down to about 3 or 4 feet on the south side. So it's not really land that we need to use, and this is a survey we produced there, kind of showing what we're actually doing, so.
So the way I understand it, that wedge, the actual property line, we thought it was to the east, it's actually to the west, and that's what made that little wedge. So all we're doing with the quit claim is we're saying, you know what, we don't have any claim to that wedge, and we're letting that go back to those property
So
owners.
it's a correction.
It's a correction.
All right.
I'll make the motion.
Okay, Charlie, thank you, Charlie.
A second.
Thank you, Jeff. I do have one more question, and that is, I think I've asked you before, but I forgot. What was the difference between a quick claim deed and a quiet title?
Quick claim deed, just kind of relinquish any interest you have in that property.
Okay.
I mean, this is kind of the way it was platted with the overlap there. I mean, they used a different north quarter corner, and that's the problem that they had out there when they platted it, so. So that's why that's there, but a quiet title, actually, you have a boundary, and then you description, and with the fairgrounds, there's probably a dozen or 15 different descriptions that are all associated in there, and we're trying to clean that description up as just one big boundary. So any joiners, can we go to court, and anybody can come and talk about it if they want to, so.
Okay.
I think the way that I typically understand it, the quick claim, we're saying this isn't ours. The quiet title, we're saying this is ours.
I got it. Okay. All
Mr.
right.
Chair, I want to thank you guys, Pat, for especially, this thing has been going on for so damn many years. I'm so happy to finally see this thing come to a little bit of a close until the next time we decide to build something, I'm sure, out there. But this has been going on with the Ag Association and with them landowners that, you know, and we've had, well, you guys know it. You guys live out there, so I mean, it's unbelievable.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, thanks. And now, so we have a motion and a second. Lene, please.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Kalina,
Yes.
Rapp,
Yes.
Way,
Yes.
Meyer.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, those documents are over at Public Works since they need to be signed and notarized. So anytime you can stop on over,
Okay.
we've got them.
You got them with you?
I got them with me, but we need to notarize. I don't know if I
Oh,
have a
okay.
notary here.
All right, I'll swing out there.
All right.
Or here, whatever.
Lene can notarize.
Lene is a notary.
I believe the auditor treasurer office can do that for you if you want to stop down after.
We have several notaries
Okay.
in office
All
there,
right.
so, in Public Works.
Then you don't have to go anywhere. Snowstorm, you know.
There you go.
I don't want him driving in this weather.
All right, out-of-state travel.
Got to go home eventually. To approve some out-of-state travel is the next item. So Pat is on the NACO Board of Directors. Their NACO Annual Conference is in Philadelphia, July 11th through the 14th.
Yeah, as president of the National Association of County Surveyors, I'm automatically on the NACO board, so they have several meetings at the national annual meeting, and there's Transportation Committee meeting. I'm actually on the Transportation Committee. I'll actually go to the Public Lands Committee meeting and probably the GIS Committee meeting as well, so.
All right.
Several meetings I'll be there for, so.
Mr. Chair, question, what kind of dollars you talking? Estimate.
I think registration was $600 and hotel, I think, is probably over $1,000, I suppose. I'm sure Philadelphia isn't cheap
See
there.
where he's
and
going.
travel out there, yeah, it's probably another
flying?
1,000, so I think we're gonna drive out there.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you, Charlie. Lene, please.
Kalina,
Yes.
Rapp,
Yes.
Way,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Number 5.
Next item that we have
There we go.
is to pass a resolution supporting a Brophy Park Trail Armor and Improvement Grant. And I've got Brad to come up and tell you a little bit about that project.
Yeah, so we spoke with, I think, Jerry and Tim last week at the coffee meeting about this. The Big Ole Bike Club, they want to look into armoring the trails at Brophy with granite fines from the quarry in St. Cloud. They pour them in there and lock it. It kind of locks together. It'd reduce some of the maintenance they do. We said we'd be open to participating as their fiscal agent. So they are applying for a grant through the LCCMR for $70,000. We would be the pass-through agent, so it'd come to our office, we'd control the money, and then we'd approve the expenditures if they were successful. And the same contractor that built the trails is who gave them the number and who would be used to do this if they were successful in getting the grant.
Okay, board's wishes.
Mr. Chair, I got a question. So this is a full grant, there's no match to it or anything?
No match up there, it's just a straight $70,000 they're asking for.
Okay. I'll make a motion to approve Resolution 2529, support Brophy Park Trail and Armor Improvement.
Thank you, Tim.
I second that.
Thank you, Jeff. Any other questions? None? Lene, please.
Rapp,
Yes.
Way,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Kalina.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. The last two items that I have kind of go hand in hand. That's approving advertising for bids. This is for some maintenance work. Our 2025 pavement markings. We also have our 2025 chloride for dust control. If approved, we'd be setting those bid openings April 30th, 2 p.m. at Public Works.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve both of them. I think we can do that. Lene, yep, for chloride and pavement markings. To go get bids.
All right.
Second.
Thank you, Charlie. Lene, please.
Way,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Kalina.
Yes.
Rapp.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And auditor treasurer, we have,
That don't look like Vicky.
that doesn't look like Vicky today. Give us your name if you would, please.
So I'm Amanda from the Auditor Treasurer's Office. I'm here in lieu of Vicky today.
Okay.
Asking for a request to abate some uncollectible delinquent mobile home taxes.
Okay.
I would request a motion to approve the abatement of uncollectible delinquent mobile home taxes in the amount of $12,674.58, plus associated penalties and interest. You guys got the documentation that kind of gave you a breakdown on that. If you'd like me to elaborate any more on this, it's basically just trying to clean up our books of stuff we're never going to be able to collect.
Any questions here? Lord's wishes.
Make a motion, we approve the abatement of the uncollectible delinquent mobile home taxes.
Thank you, Charlie.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tim. Lene, please.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Kalina,
Yes.
Rapp,
Yes.
Way,
Yes.
Meyer.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jill, please.
Good morning. I have two items this morning. The first is just looking for a motion to approve bills totaling $535,701.55.
I'll make a motion to pay the bills.
Thanks, Shane.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tim. Lene, please.
Kalina,
Yes.
Rapp,
Yes.
Way,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Motion carries.
The next item I have, so we haven't had a formal request, but we kind of had an FYI email from Steve over at Pope Douglas saying he would be requesting to advance special assessment money again this year. He did provide some estimates in an email. You know, it's their estimates based on what revenue is going to come in, so I'm not sure if a full advancement will be needed or just a partial. Last year, what Vicki and I had done was we just looked at it on an ongoing basis and advanced funds on an as-needed basis versus just giving them all the money up front, not knowing what's gonna for sure come in anyway. So I'm just looking for a motion to approve us advancing them money on an as-needed basis, which my office has been monitoring their balances prior to paying each payroll and each bill run anyway, so we would continue to do that. If,
So, I
if
just
you're
have-
in agreement with that.
Yeah, I just have to ask, what happens if he didn't get it?
Mr. Chair, I have a comment. At our last meeting, now that I'm new to the board, we did talk about one of them, one of the big payments is his insurance. And we asked them to contact the insurance company and see if we could push that back to a later time instead of always having it due. It kind of comes due prior to him getting his payments. And then there was one other big payment. So I did ask Steve if he would look into seeing if he could move those payments. That would probably help a lot because the insurance one is a huge one.
Yeah, the other big payment that they have, which is due every July, is bond and interest
Oh, that's what it
payments.
was,
And
yeah.
those you can't,
Can't
those are
move
what
that
they
one.
are.
But
Those
we did,
won't change.
we did ask him to move the insurance, see if he could talk
Insurance
to
money
them.
can move. I
Or,
think, well,
or even if they could pay that, I don't know if that's an option, but if they could pay that, you know, quarterly versus annually, that might help. I don't know if that
Oh, good
agent will
point.
do that or not.
Maybe you could talk to Steve about that too, being you brought
I
it
mean,
up.
I can,
Or
but,
we can at our next meeting.
but some agents will do that. I'm not sure on this particular policy if that's something that they will do or not, but.
that's brand new again, you know, that was why that's why it got more expensive. That was part of the MCIT drop, you know. And
Right.
like we said, they were too expensive, and then they said, well, there's not that many burners. Well, not everybody has jails either, and they're more expensive than burners, but all of a sudden, we were only at like 90 days looking to try to insurance an incinerator.
Right.
And that's it went almost triple our cost on the insurance. So that was
And
not
we're
all
just
Steve's
hesitant.
fault that
Okay,
time.
No,
okay,
on that one, yeah, because I questioned it too.
okay. So board's wishes.
Well, as like with Jill watching it and Jill and Vicky watching it, yeah, I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Charlie.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Shane. 1A, please.
Rapp,
Yes.
Way,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Kalina.
Yes.
Motion carries.
That's
Okay,
all I have. Thank you.
Alrighty, I think we have moved into board results, so I am going to make this announcement in compliance with Minnesota statutes, section 13D.05 subdivision 3A. I sharing with the public the conclusions of the department head evaluations held on March 18th, 2025, that they were all satisfactory for the group that were reviewed. And they were, and so it's informational. That's all I've got on that. So then, from that one, we'll move to the resolution for the reappointment of the county highway engineer.
Is he still interested?
No. What kind of roles, hey, what did you bring us for roles today?
Hey.
No.
That's just guaranteed work, that's all.
So anyhow, we need to make, move action on that. That is a resolution.
Mr. Chair, I'll make Resolution 2530 to reappoint County Highway Engineer Tim Erickson.
Thank you, Shane.
Not second.
Thank you, Jeff. 1A, please.
Meyer,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Kalina,
Yes.
Rapp,
Yes.
Way.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. All right, we'll move into the per diem section here. And
So I
Tim-
guess I'm first.
Tim, you're lucky.
Okay, on the 4th of March, we had a commissioner meeting, or a joint meeting with the city, and it went very well. On the 10th, planning and zoning meeting, that was in the evening at 6. 11 o'clock, Lake Mary Township annual meeting. On the 14th, we had planning and zoning viewing. On the 17th, it's MRC Zoom. We had it in the admin building here. And then in the afternoon, I had Glacial Ridge Trail, which was by Sunberg, meeting there. Then the 18th is regular commissioner meeting. Then on the 18th, I had the fair board meeting, and we discussed a lot about the upcoming fair. 19th was Association of Townships at Public Works. 21st, a hospital board meeting. 24th, I had Lakeland Mental Health in Fergus Falls, and they pay mileage and per diem. And then 25th, Jerry and I had coffee at Public Works and discussed quite a bit of stuff there. And then on 25th, planning and zoning meeting. And then the 26th, 27th, and 28th, we had AMC. That was a very good presentation at the Grandview Lodge in Nisswa.
Thank you, Tim. Charlie.
On the 4th, we had commissioners meeting, and the same day we had a 501 meeting at the hospital. 7th, at cannabis meeting, Dave Rush office at 7:30 in the morning. On the 10th, Horizon Public Health. On the 11th, Broadway reconstruction thing going on out at Public Works. On the 12th, LGCC out at Woodland. Then I had my one-on-one with Carl from the hospital. 13th, Rainbow Rider in Lowry. 17th, we were here Zooming with MRCC. 18th was commissioner meeting. 19th, Association of the Townships. And also the hospital executive meeting in the afternoon. 20th, solid waste. And also we had the pre-bid again on the Rainbow Rider garage out here by the sewer plant. Still, we own the land. We bought that, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, and I someday we're gonna move dirt and actually build that, I think. We're still working on about the third bid.
Jeez.
Yeah. 21st Hospital Board, 26th Armor. I zoomed that down at St. Cloud. And yesterday morning, we had another 501, and I brought you guys some stuff to read about what we did yesterday. That was about an hour, almost a 2-hour meeting at 7 in the morning. Getting back to the Rainbow Rider pre-bid, and not to blame anybody other than, you know, the money for the Department of Transportation, we get, it's both federal and state. They have rules when you have to try to find specific type of individuals
Right,
that
right,
own, you know.
It complicates it.
They make it where the two people, the two different groups that had the bids before didn't qualify. Yeah,
Yeah.
doing it again for the
Yeah,
third
that's
time.
ridiculous.
It is.
All right, thank you, Charlie. Alrighty, for me, on the 18th, it was a regular meeting, 218, Sauk River Watershed in Sauk Center, 220 LAC, 221 Hospital, 222, 23, 24, 25, 26 Conference, 227 PIO, 3-4 regular meeting, 3-4 Hospital. That was with that town. Yep. And then 3-6 Prime West, 310 Horizon, and 311 Hospital meeting with Carl. 313, we had a PIO, and 311 was Carlos Township annual meeting. Those annual meetings are per deemable, but I got one with Carl, so it doesn't matter. Yeah. That's mine. Shane.
On the 17th, MRC meeting, I did it by Zoom. On the 18th was our regular county board meeting. 18th, I had Viking Library monthly updates up in Fergus. On the 19th was the annual township meeting that we all went to. On the 19th, it was Alamere Health Subcommittee. On the 19th, we had that executive board meeting. On the 20th, Pope Douglas Solid Waste, their monthly meeting, and we discussed some of that earlier. They pay. On the 20th, the library board meeting. On the 21st was our monthly Alamere Health meeting, and then the PIO meeting on the 25th to go over the stuff that's going on for the meetings. And then last week, I was up at the Association of Counties for Leadership Summit, 26th to the 28th.
All right, thank you, Shane. Jeff.
On February 28th, I went to the Protect Prosperity Town Hall meeting with Mary Franson and Tori Westrom, update on the legislative down in the Capitol. And March 4th at the county board meeting. March 5th was the Drainage 101 down in Wilmer. I find it very more informational. I learned a lot more than the conference that we went to in Arrowwood. And you put it in 4 hours rather than 3 days.
Wow.
So I think it's very well worth the trip. Judge the Great Hot Dish Bake-Off, invited by the Douglas County Historical Society. That was a great time. And then the South Soil and Water Conservation Committee meeting, the Highway 29 reconstruction open house held at the Public Works. Annual township meeting at Ida Township. I just put down the mileage, but didn't put it down for a per diem. One-on-one with Julie Anderson, prepare for open line. Housing study kickoff meeting held at the Public Works. I just put down the mileage. And then Rainbow Rider monthly board meeting, Palm Terre Watershed joint power meeting, monthly meeting in Morris, open line. The 17th, MRC Zoom meeting held here in the county boardroom. 18th at the county board meeting. The 18th, Sauk River Watershed meeting. And the 19th, department head meeting. The 19th, the Douglas County Township annual meeting. And then the 19th, the Reason for Mental Health meeting, monthly meeting in Elbow Lake. Alamere Hospital Board meeting on the 21st. The 24th, the legislative Zoom meeting, and I did that from home. And then the 25th, the West Central Community Action monthly board meeting in Elbow Lake.
Very good. The only question I got is on that hot dish bake-off.
Yes.
Did they have a vote on whether or not it should be called a casserole?
Well, one of the things that I mentioned for an idea is a contest for bars. you know.
Okay.
And the guy said, well, we got the wine and everything. I said, dude, you don't have no clue. I'm talking about brownies, cookies, you know, the typical after dessert type of thing.
Oh,
My stepmother.
Oh,
passed away.
oh, okay.
But it was fun.
She-
It was
She's the one
fun.
that started that when she was
Okay.
working. She
Mr.
was
Chair.
volunteering at.
I think he should either get paid for the annual township meeting or the 29 reconstruction. That was on the 11th, one or the other. The annual township meetings we usually pay for.
That's true. That's true.
Annual township meeting is one of our per diems.
Yeah, and then
So
I would,
I'll
think he should.
accept that.
yeah, I think it's right. Okay, add that to
Will do.
Mr. Way, Commissioner Way's per diem.
Okay, Mr. Chair, will do.
All righty, and with that, we need a motion to approve.
Make a motion to approve per diems.
Thank you, Charlie.
I second that.
Thank you, Jeff. Lene, please.
Schmidt,
yes.
Kalina,
Yes.
Rapp,
Yes.
Way,
Yes.
Meyer.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. And with that, we have any comments from the floor?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Not April Fools now.
Thank you to Shane and Jeff for their neat submission
Nice.
of the,
Great.
thank you.
Great.
You're welcome.
Great. All right.
Thank you, Tom.
Anything else? Anything else? Nothing?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Charlie.
Second.
Thank you, Jeff. Lene, please.
Way,
Yes.
Meyer,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Kalina,
Yes.
Rapp.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Meeting adjourned.